There comes a moment in every legendary life when the gift that once defined you begins to slip away, and for Art Garfunkel, that moment arrived long before he was ready. At 81, the voice that had carried generations through their joys, heartbreaks, and awakenings suddenly became fragile in a way he never imagined possible. The man whose angelic tenor once floated effortlessly above Paul Simon's melodies now found himself frightened by silence, his own silence, and as he struggled to understand what remained of him without singing, he discovered that losing a voice can feel dangerously close to losing a self. That journey began in 2010 during what should have been a triumphant reunion tour, when, at 72, in mid-performance, Garfunkel opened his mouth and the sound simply wasn't there. Doctors diagnosed him with vocal cord paresis, a partial paralysis that collapsed the mid-range that had defined his career. Within days, the Simon and Garfunkel tour was cancelled. Within weeks, he withdrew from performing entirely. It wasn't just his voice that faltered, his identity fractured, and he even began referring to himself as Walter, a name symbolizing the version of himself who existed without music. For months he spiraled, afraid of microphones, afraid of disappointing audiences, afraid that the answer to "Will you ever sing again?" might be no. But something inside him refused to surrender. Slowly, painfully, he began teasing his voice back by singing softly along to James Taylor, the Everly Brothers, and Chet Baker. Tiny victories kept him going until he forced himself to face empty halls with his longtime engineer Stuart Breed, singing to rows of vacant seats as he relearned how to create sound in a room. After 3 years, he dared small audiences, his wife's Buddhist congregation, then 7 intimate shows in a 90-seat New York gallery, each performance more an act of courage than vocal certainty. Pretending to be recovered eventually helped him become recovered, and by year 4, his voice returned, not suddenly, but gradually, like a flickering light. "I feel 99% there," he said as he stepped back into larger venues with a new kind of show built not on perfection, but on connection and storytelling. And when asked, as always, about reuniting with Paul Simon, he answered gently, "It takes 2 to tango." Ask him first, accepting the complicated truth that Simon himself had openly acknowledged, "We don't get along. It's not fun." Yet Garfunkel held no bitterness, remembering the magic of their harmonies, even if the partnership itself had long fractured. Meanwhile, he found a new source of meaning watching his son, Art Garfunkel Jr., carve out his own musical identity. Modern, distinct, yet carrying echoes of the tone that once defined his father. Through his son's journey, Garfunkel realized that music doesn't end. It evolves, passes on, reshapes itself. And by the time he reached his 80s, he accepted that he would never again sing like he did in his prime, but the truth no longer crushed him. Instead, it grounded him. He had rebuilt himself through raw courage, walking onto stages without knowing what sound would come out, and that vulnerability became a new kind of artistry. With age came tenderness, reflection, and an unexpected gratitude for the rise, the fall, the silence, and the return. "I've been a thoroughly lucky duck," he said, marveling at the arc of a life defined not only by a near-perfect voice, but by the will to reclaim it. Art Garfunkel's story is a reminder of how fragile a gift can be, and how powerful the human spirit becomes when fighting to restore it.